like the rest of you, we're trying to make sense of this crazy thing that we call life. I'm RJ.
I'm Khalil.
I'm
Unique.
Chasman.
I'm unique.
And welcome to Try Not to Overthink It. Every day we find ourselves discussing many different topics, from trending news to the state of our society as a whole. You name it, we've probably talked about it. After many heated debates, we decided to expand and share our conversations and give them to you from both a therapist standpoint as well as a social worker's point of view, and hopefully get your input. If this is your first time here, we'd like to thank you for checking us out, and we hope that you'll stay and become part of the tribe as well as participate in the conversations. So today, what we're going to talk about is why mental health is important and mental health mattering. For us as providers, we felt that it was very important that we educate our listeners into why we should be taking care of our mental health as well as our physical health. Part of our job as professionals is education. Educating you about what it is that you're experiencing, educating you about what options are available to you, as well as educating you about different choices that you can make regarding your treatment. So who wants to start it off?
I definitely will start it off, RJ, because I had a funny situation. Actually, one of my best friends, he got divorced 2 years ago, and he's actually in a new relationship, and it's been very difficult for him to have kind of that intimacy, that closeness with this new partner, and they ended up breaking up just recently. And so I brung it up to him. I said, hey, have you dealt with the actual loss of your partner who you were married to for 5 years? I said, have you begun to grieve that process? Have you processed what actually happened? Because it wasn't really a mutual breakup, and it wasn't a good breakup. There was a lot of animosity, resentment, and he's trying to step into this new relationship, and it didn't work out for him. So I said, well, some of the complaints that I know you were having from that other woman, it seemed as if he would not get close to her. And so I said, what have you really, have you been able to talk to your therapist about what you were really feeling during that breakup? Because, when you lose your partner, we have a tendency to look within at first, right? But then obviously we start blaming other people. A lot of people will do that, especially, people who aren't good at just kind of being kind of introspective, right? So we start blaming outward things. And then, the people we're around, we hear that, we jump on it. Yeah, she wasn't good anyway for you. You know what I'm saying? She was doing this, she was disrespectful to your mother. She was this, she was that. But he never really got to process how he felt when that person left. And that's that grieving process. And so he's been very depressed over the last 2 years. I mean, I could tell. This is my best friend. We grew up together. So it's like I was trying to explain that without trying to therapize him. You know what I mean? People don't want to hear that from people who are close to you. But I can tell by the way he's moving, you're not going to be good for any relationship until you deal with that loss, with that grief. And I know men are kind of difficult because they don't want to admit that, hey, that did hurt. That person telling me they didn't want to be with me had me feel as if I wasn't worth it, or I was defective, or something was wrong with me, right? So how do we process that? Anybody want to speak to that?
I will. I think sometimes you have to kind of take the focus off of you, right? Okay, maybe this other person, I'm just not what this person needs. Yes, it's about you. And yes, they're saying they don't want you. But maybe it's not just you as a whole because you suck. But maybe it's you as a whole who just wasn't a good fit, right? Like if I went to a rager, I'm not, I think I would fit in, but I also am not one into doing a bunch of street drugs that's randomly passed around a table. That might not be the crowd for me.
Over to you?
I'm just not gonna do it. You know, I'm just not gonna do it. I'm not that girl. And so for them, they'll be like, you know, we don't like you here. You're a party pooper. You're a buzzkill. But in a different setting, I'm just the right dose of happy. I'm just the right dose of fun. And I think in relationships, we do have to kind of move out of our own way and say, okay, maybe I just wasn't what that person needed. And that's okay. If you're not satisfied with that, you could always stand to improve. But I think that it's okay to just accept sometimes you're just not everything for everybody.
I mean, I agree with that. I think that also having a very diverse and robust emotional vocabulary is very important as well. Mm-hmm. Because by the more words that you have to describe what you're going through or what you're thinking or what you're feeling or what you're experiencing, the easier it is for you to be able to articulate that to your partner. Mm-hmm. Right. And for a lot of us, I feel like that, you know, when it comes to mental health, mental illness, because people don't know how to say things, they don't know how to express things, it becomes an issue when it comes to seeking help or getting the help that we need, getting the closure, you know, traversing the trail of recovery. And when I say recovery, I don't just mean recovery as far as substance misuse or physical health. You know, you can be in recovery from a wide multitude of different things. For a lot of people, when they hear recovery, they think of either physical health or substance misuse. But no, when you are, every time you have a mental health crisis or a mental illness breakdown, you are in recovery. Your body is having to reset itself. Your mind is having to reset itself and realign itself. And so for a lot of us, when we don't have the words to be able to express how we're feeling or what we're thinking or what we're experiencing, it becomes an issue. It becomes a barrier for other people who may see that you're going through something, but I don't know exactly what you're going through because you can't communicate that to me. You can't articulate that to me, which is what, you know, most of us as providers, that is something that we struggle with, is trying to provide our clients, our consumers, our charges with the language, the words that they need to be able to communicate, not just with us, you know, but other people that you come in contact with, other people that are part of your support system, because you have a system outside of treatment. Mm-hmm. So you have family members that you spend 90% of your time with outside of just me as your therapist or me as your provider or me as someone who is coaching you through whatever you're going through. There are other people who are going to spend a majority of their time with you. And so you need to be able to articulate to them what you're experiencing so that when I'm not there or someone who's not a part of your treatment team is there, they can potentially provide you aid or give you a hand and get you out of that hole.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I want to add to that, like most of the time when speaking to the crisis perspective is that, as you said, RJ, them not having the necessary vocabulary, that means a lot of times they're to the point where there's no return almost. It's really counterproductive trying to work with the individual when they're at the crisis state and getting them back to that healthy equilibrium, as we say, or getting them back to baseline is a huge struggle, you know, just from the perspective of how do you know that you're in a crisis? What do you define as a crisis? A relationship issue is a crisis. We got to think about a loss of a family member as a crisis, but in turn, like you said, having a support system that know you internally and knowing how you think, I believe that's definitely a good resource to have. Like I said, my depression looks different from anybody else's. It may be my house not being clean. It could be the clothes not being washed. Somebody coming over here and saying, well, Chasman didn't answer the phone. So we have to really look and do self-awareness checks, like you always talk about, checking on those people around you and just being in tune. The crisis situation is really interesting because a lot of times I think that we look at it from just a one-sided spectrum, and it's not just, oh, you overdosing or you're on drugs or substances. It's a plethora of things that can happen, like you said, like getting your kids taken away, a divorce, I mean, like moving churches. Some people, like, we can't really define what a crisis is as a person. Everybody's mindset and worldview and moral compass are different. So crisis is definitely a great thing to look at, even with homelessness. Like people losing a house. I can't say that may mean much to me, but someone else, it may be their everything, or losing a camper, or, you know, we have to really like look at things from the perspective of how do people conceptualize. And as you said, our consumers conceptualize things from a larger view of outside of our own. We're the clinician. It isn't our goal to say that person is not in crisis.
Right.
I mean, our goal is to not say that, also not to say that you're not in crisis, but it's also our goal is to not be judgmental as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I feel as though I'm going to be judged or I'm going to be looked at some kind of way, I'm probably not going to feel comfortable talking to that person. And for a lot of our clients, they deal with the stigma associated with being mentally ill or having a mental health mental health crisis or a mental health issue. So like a lot of people take those terms and they mix them together and they think that they're the same thing, and they're not. A mental health issue refers to someone's state of mental and emotional well-being, whereas a mental illness is something that you're diagnosed with that affects your thoughts and your behaviors. So again, one of our major jobs is education. You know, not only just educating my client or my consumer, but also their family, the community at large, because for some people, what they know of mental health or mental illness is what they've seen on television, what they've seen in TV, what they've seen in movies or, you know, mainstream media, because mental illness or mental health period as a whole, it's becoming more serious because you have more athletes speaking about it.
Right.
You have more famous people speaking about it. You have a lot of people who are championing the cause of mental health and mental health awareness now. So it is now gone from something that is deemed as something dangerous or people should be afraid of people who have issues, to where people are more empathetic and sympathetic to a person who's struggling or a person who's going through things. Because again, like for me, one of the things that I constantly always have to do whenever I go interact with people out in the community is I'm having to disprove what they think, you know, a diagnosis is or a mental health issue is. I'm having to constantly combat those things because what they know is someone who's schizophrenic does these things. Mm-hmm. Now, as you alluded to, Jasmine, you know, no two people who have the same issue or same diagnosis, you know, experience them the same way. Mm-hmm. You know, no different than there's no two people who are on the same exact medication and the medication affects them the same way. So a lot of people think, oh, well, you know, if you're schizophrenic or you're this or you're that, that makes you less than, or that makes you, you know, somebody that people should stay away from, or you're dangerous, or you should be somebody that people should be afraid of. And it's not. That is one of the main hurdles that I run into, especially with the younger generation of consumers that come in, is they're afraid of people looking at them some kind of way, judging them. And I've even run into some apartment complexes don't even want to rent to us because, hey, we don't rent. That's, I mean, when you call them and you tell them where you work and who you are, we don't rent to your people. Mm-hmm. Because there is a stigma that comes along with being mentally ill. Some of our people, they wear their mental health issues or their mental health diagnosis externally, where you can physically see them and physically recognize they're mentally unwell because you'll see them tracking things that nobody else is tracking. You'll see them responding to voices and you're looking around like, who's this person talking to? Or they're not keeping their living space clean or orderly or in some sense of rhyme or reason. And it's things of that nature that, again, my job as the provider is to not be the person who's telling you what to do. Our jobs as a provider is to walk right along beside you and be on the journey with you and provide you sound, rational, you know, facts and recommendations for you to make the best decision for yourself. Because again, our goal is not to domesticate you. If it gets to the point to where you're just waiting on me to make every decision for you, that's not a beneficial relationship. And that's not what we're here to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're no longer empowering the person. We talked about that before. You have to teach a person to fish. Mm-hmm. I can't just keep providing you with all these resources, which we fall into. I know as a social worker, as a case manager, it was just so much easier to do it for them sometimes. And I was trying to save time, but that's not how it works. Even with trying to teach people as a therapist, trying to teach people coping skills, right?
Oh, yeah. It's hard.
It's hard, right? But I know for a fact that in the moment, people are not going to do things they're not practicing
Right.
in the moment, right? So when they're presented with something that makes them anxious, makes them depressed, or makes them irritated, are they going to practice what we went through? So that's why I constantly try to repeat it with them and work through these modules with them over and over again, so that when they are faced with something, well, I remember doing this with Khalil, and it becomes clockwork, because I can't do it for you. You can't call me during the middle of that crisis. I might not pick up. So you're going to have to prepare yourself to do that. And that's the sad part about when you deal with mental illness, is that a lot of people only see the extreme when it comes to mental illness. So immediately, if they see you having a mental breakdown, it's like, I need to call 911. I got to get this person out of my apartment complex. Or, you know what, I'm going to call their case manager, tell them, hey, man, we're going to fine them because they did this or that. So that's one of the main reasons why our clients, especially mentally ill clients, need to be really proactive on their treatment, taking their medication, going to see their psychiatrist, going to see their therapist, doing all those steps. And I mean, yes, it's unfortunate. Sometimes medication doesn't always work, but that's why you need certain coping skills, because medication has a half-life in your system sometimes.
I think right now we are in an awesome but difficult time as it relates to just the world as a whole, because I think, Raja was saying how, yes, now everyone knows about mental health. And I tell a lot of my clients, you have pop psychology. As clinicians, we know that pop psychology exists, and I call them internet therapists. Yes. I was like, that sounds like something you got from the internet therapist. That's not a real thing. It's not a real concept. Because you have them saying, walking around, I'm depressed because they had a bad day, or my anxiety is getting to me.
Or or marijuana.
You're just nervous.
Yeah, girl.
Right. Oh, I'm OCD. I'm just a little OCD because I like to keep my house clean. So people wear these serious diagnoses as if they are a shirt. This headband. Yeah, I just throw it on a badge of honor. That's what I got.
I'm bipolar.
I'm good.
I cussed you out today.
I'm bipolar. Right. If someone has, they don't know how to manage their emotions, they're a mismanaged emotion haver, this person's bipolar. No, that's not how bipolar works. And so when you get into situations like an apartment complex, if I have someone who is listening to the internet or looking at the internet for their resources of how to navigate these spaces with people, then yes, I'm going to have this skewed vision of, I don't want a bipolar millennial in my apartment, right? I don't want somebody who's depressed. But we get to see people who live normal lives every day, who battle severe mental illness, and they hold jobs, they have kids. You would never know unless you saw that person in a true crisis situation. Or
if you're part of their treatment team.
Right.
A part of their treatment team. And I think we have the awesome opportunity of not only just educating our clients what a crisis is, even for them, by saying, okay, let's look at a difficult time versus a crisis. What do we have going on here? Right? Because they'll come to you, oh no, it's a crisis. Oh my gosh, my world's falling apart. Right. Is your world falling apart? Or are you having a bad day? Right. And so teaching that to them so that they can, I think you guys talked about it, teaching them to be able to communicate that to someone else and being able to take ownership of what's going on and empower them to speak up and say, no, I'm not having a crisis. I am having a moment of weakness. I am feeling very affected by the space that I'm in. And I'm trying to avoid these cliche words that we hear bounced around the internet, such as triggers and
narcissist, gaslighting.
Look, I'm trying to avoid those words.
Toxic.
Okay,
everybody's toxic for me.
Everybody's toxic. Everybody's a gaslighter. Yeah. But I think in teaching people how to express themselves in a way that is healthy by saying, hey, I'm just not feeling it today. Something as simple as that can be the very thing that helps somebody to get through and to be able to communicate emotionally how they're feeling, even if they don't have all of the clinical words to go with it.
Not even just that, but also there's not going to be something that's just going to fix you. Like we've gotten to the point to where we seek instant gratification without putting forth the effort and the work to be able to get past where we're at. So I remember when I worked at worked at the hospital. I worked on the behavioral health unit. And this girl, she couldn't have been no more than 23, 24. So she had a little kid. And so, you know, every couple hours she's at the nurse station. I'm having anxiety. I'm having a panic attack. And so they give her some medication for it. And so, like, you know, we were talking because we work 12s. So 12 hours, we on that unit. We're locked in there with you. And so we're just sitting around talking. So I asked her, I said, what are you going to do when you are experiencing an anxiety or panic attack and you don't have your medication? What are you going to do then? You know, what are you going to do when you're in the carpool lane at your child's school to pick up your kid and you start having a panic attack and you don't have your medication? What are you going to do then? You know, so I explained to her it's important that, like you said, developing the skills necessary to process what you're experiencing and navigate you through that so that you're not becoming reliant on this particular medication. Now, again, me speaking about anxiety is on the less severe spectrum of mental illness. Now, for someone who's schizophrenic or bipolar, who is on the more severe end of the spectrum of mental illness, because mental illness is not just one line, it is a spectrum. So you have people who are acute, moderate, and then severely mentally ill. So a lot of people get it confused and they think it's all lumped together. All the illnesses are lumped together. All the, you know, the struggles that people go together are lumped together, and it's not. But, you know, someone who is severely mentally ill, again, your brain is not like the rest of your body. You know, it's like a rubber band. The more times you play with the rubber band, eventually it snaps. But your brain, when you have issues that are going on with you, your brain, your emotions go out of whack, whatever you're experiencing, your brain does not always recover, especially if you're severely mentally ill, it does not always recover like it used to when you were younger. So your brain snaps out, snaps back into place, snaps out, snaps back into place. The more times you have these breaks, you have these episodes, you become less and less of who you used to be, and your baseline shifts. So, you know, explaining to people, hey, why it's important to consistently participate in treatment. Because if you're trying to be a better version of yourself, you're trying to achieve goals that you've never had before, you got to be willing to put forth the work. And for, you know, people who are suffering from mental health issues, it can become extremely difficult to enjoy just basic things in life. Everything becomes a struggle, physically, mentally, emotionally. It just becomes a struggle. And I think that at least with, you know, things becoming more popular, it's become both good and bad at the same time. Because as you guys said, everyone wants to walk around and claim that they're this or claim that they're that or label somebody else. We've gotten to the point where we want to label everything. But at least it has gotten to the point where at least people are willing to have conversations about it instead of just suffering in silence. You know, instead of, you know, I'm feeling like I want to take my life and then I just take my life and didn't tell nobody. You know, or I'm feeling some kind of way and you don't go get the help. Because for some people, they normally wait until it is exceedingly bad before they reach out and get the help. And
we were talking about that, RJ, because we talked about John Wall. We were reading that article where we're like, why did you let it get so bad? And, you know, he lost a lot of family members due to COVID. And plus he had all those injuries 2 years ago. And I'm like, why did he let it get so bad that he mentioned he wanted to take his life? Speaking of certain words to express your emotions, right? And we talked about that. And it was a little scary to me to think that, hey, somebody who's making this type of money, why don't you have a clinical professional therapist with you? How come you don't have somebody in your network or a primary care physician talking with you? Why did you have to let it get there? And I do understand men have a difficult time. Like, we need an emotion wheel for some men, right? Like, this is what's going on, because everything comes out as anger or irritability, especially with African-American men, right? And we see that, but that's not it. You need to be able to label that emotion. What's really going on? Are you fearful of something? Yeah, I might never be able to play basketball again because these injuries are so bad, right? So then that fear brings on the anxiety, brings on the worry. Yeah, and then it multiplies. Those are the type of things where if you're working with a clinician, they're going to be able to name that and help you name that. And it's scary because your body reacts with the brain, like you said, RJ. So if I'm very tensed up, my automatic nervous system is going to take over. I'm going to have panic. My heart's going to feel like it's about to jump out of my chest. at this point, the only way to reverse that, I got to start breathing. I have a client, I had to explain that to her. It's like, one thing, you're not breathing. You're not taking deep breaths. So of course you're going to have a panic attack because you don't have any air coming, oxygen coming to your brain. So it feels like you're choking. I was like, we got to get to breathing. We need to breathe through this. And I think people don't understand that the body always wants to return itself to homeostasis. They don't get that. That's what your body, even when you're cold, right? That's why you shiver, to try to warm yourself back up. People don't get that. The body will tell what it needs to do. The body is so intelligent because it works with the brain. And I think people
don't. Yeah, because they're not listening, right? We live in a society, we talked about it, where everything is so quick and we're moving so fast, and you're not trained to hear that. Right. When your body is saying this is what I do. This is how I respond to it. When my stomach grumbles, I feed it. When, I'm shivering, I put a coat on. I put some more clothes on. When I'm feeling hot, I take things off. But what do you do when you start to feel sad and it goes beyond the incident? What do you do when you have this overwhelming, heavy feeling on your chest from walking into a room of strangers? You don't know how to do that. And I think for me, one of the things I tell clients is you have fail-safes. Nobody waits. If you wait until you're in a fire to figure out how to put the fire out, it's too late. You're burnt up. I said, so your fail-safes are things that you put in place so that when the fire comes, not if, when it does, whenever you find yourself in that situation, you have tools in place. You know where the fire extinguisher is. You know where your exits are. And so you're able to get out. When life happens, because it will, I don't care who you are, what experience you have, how much money you have. An incident in life happens. But when it does, you want to make sure you have key fail-safes in place. That fail-safe for the average person is a routine. Go to sleep around the same time, eat your meals at the same time, hang with the certain groups of people. Those things, we don't think about them, but they keep us safe. Right. Because when you stop hanging out with your normal group of friends, when you start dressing differently, when you start eating different things or not eating at all, when you're not sleeping or you're sleeping too much, right? When you don't go to the gym, your body says something's not right. So having a routine is a fail-safe, right? Having accountability is another fail-safe. Setting alarms. Just take a vitamin, right? Oh, now I got to take my vitamin every day. Why? You're an adult. Because I have to do these things. And so for a person with a mental health issue or disorder, I really strongly initiate, what's your routine? Because as I'm teaching them to learn to listen to their bodies, right? I'm teaching them how to be able to differentiate, Jasmine, a crisis and just, I'm having a bad day. Right. I'm teaching them, Khalil, if I lose a loved one, I have to reach out to my support system because this is going to be difficult to process all by myself. I have to find me a therapist or even reach out to my therapist that I may not have talked to for a month. I'm instilling these things in them so when the fire comes, they know how to put it out.
And I think that's the amazing part about being a clinician is just having the depths to be able to see things and feel things beyond just normal words. Like I can look at my clients and be like, something's wrong. Like, or I'll text them and be like, I haven't heard from you in a while. Are you good? And they're like, no, I'm going through hell right now. And I appreciate you like really just checking in because normal people don't have to do that. And I just think that that's a gift. And a lot of times, for the individual, it just makes them feel like, okay, well, somebody actually does care. And with the current climate, like I was reading the CEO from Bed Bath & Beyond, he actually killed himself. Yes. And I think it's becoming a real public topic. Just basically us being able to have this conversation is good. And it's more men just because, as you said, RJ and Khalil, that the emotional vocabulary, and then a lot of men, like they said, they don't have support groups or bro code, like I'm not snitching because this, or I'm not going to say nothing because I don't want to feel weak, or I don't want to feel that I'm being minimized. But we have to check on each other. Like, I just really, I don't know. And even with the nurse that we were talking about a couple of weeks back, a lot of these situations has really brought a lot of awareness to just how we have to be vigilant and pay attention to what's going on within society. It's a lot going on, and I don't think people outside of the standard clinicians know.
I mean, I definitely agree. I think that for us, we're as men, as a whole, we're taught that it is weak to show emotion. Because when you think about it, like, we're raised and indoctrinated to be a certain way. We're indoctrinated to be super masculine. Like, when you look at the toys that we're given as men, the most anatomically incorrect dude, you're gonna get this action figure because that's what a man is supposed to look like. We're taught, to be rough and to be rugged and to be, emotionless. You're a punk if you crying, or you a crybaby if you crying, if you show too many emotions. And so for a lot of us, because of the way that we are brought up, we tend to be not as emotionally available as we should be, which domino effects into the way that we interact with our loved ones, rather that be your partner or your children. But then also in the way that we communicate how we feel, so because I'm taught to not show emotion, I'm not going to talk about emotions neither. Right. So when I'm going through it, I'm going through hell right now. I'm just riding the wave. That's just what I'm going to do. I'm going to ride the wave. Hopefully that bad boy takes me back up to the top, because if not, we going down and we going to stay down. And so for a lot of us, that's what ends up happening because of the way that we were raised as children. It starts when we were young. It starts when we were young. Yeah. Like when I talked about emotional vocabulary, like, we tell our children when they're growing up, use your words. Tell me how you're feeling. But then as we get older, we forget that lesson. We forget that lesson. So you'll have somebody, like, for me, because I'm very in tune with other people's feelings, I can tell when somebody is not okay. I feel it. I feel it. And so then it makes me not okay because I'm feeding off of them not being okay. And conversely, I could be feeling exceedingly crappy because somebody else is feeling themselves. Guess what? It makes me start feeling myself too. So for me, because I'm aware of that, I'm able to sit down. What's wrong? Nothing. Something's clearly not okay. Like we can sit here all day. I got time. Because I'm good. Because I can tell that you're not okay. But that's what people tell themselves. They put that strong face on. I'm okay. I'm fine. And you're not fine and you're not okay. It's okay to not be okay. Like, that sounds cliche saying it out loud because you hear people say that's a thing now. Everyone says that it's okay to not be okay. It is. It's okay to not be okay. And it's also okay to talk to people about you not being okay. It's okay.
I think that's the part. That's the part right there.
That's it.
Well, it's a perceived sign of weakness if I tell, especially for a man, if I say, man, I'm not doing too good right now. I don't even feel like getting up today, or I don't feel like going to work, man, because I'm just a little depressed about some issues going on in my life. And people perceive in their mind that you are looking at them as being weak. That's what they're thinking. I've had several clients, and it's very difficult for them to want to get close emotionally, even with people they love, because then they're thinking, well, I'm a man. Why would I want my wife to know that I'm going through it right now? Then she'll think that I'm soft, or I'm not, able to protect her anymore, or I'm not capable of leading a household, and so those thoughts become distortions. And so we see it in people's behavior after that. The behavior changes.
I mean, but I think that what people have to understand is this right here. Those who mind, they don't really matter. Yeah, and those people who matter, they don't mind. Like, to me, I've had people where I've just sat on the phone and just listened to them cry. Not because, oh man, I'm getting something out of this, or they paying me to sit on the phone and listen to them cry, or they sit in my office and I'm watching them cry and I'm watching them go through this emotional purge, a catharsis. But again, sometimes it's just the fact that someone is there. That's all that I needed, was someone to just not say anything, because again, like even for us as providers, the mistake that I've seen a lot of people make is they feel like they always have to have a response. I always got to have an answer, and sometimes you're not going to have the answer. It's okay to not have the answer in that moment, but you know, when it comes to developing a emotional support system, because you see a lot of people, you know, go out and go get an emotional support animal of some kind. You know, because
leaving people alone. They need it. They need their emotional bird.
I've seen people with birds. I've seen people with lizards. I've seen people with pigs. I saw this lady in Walmart yesterday with an emotional support pig. I was like, a pig? Like, are we going with that? I was like, oh, okay. I'm trying to see how I can get
that one.
You know,
no dog.
I'm trying to get an emotional support pony. That's what I need.
Listen, hey, but you know what they do? They do support, not to derail.
No.
But I think you're hit on a very, you know, great point where if I don't know that the people who are in my network that I can truly be vulnerable with them, then who do I have to be vulnerable with? I pulled up a post on the metaverse, and it says, and I'm gonna class it up for the saints. It says, we really in a sassy man apocalypse. This is what some young lady wrote, that we're in a sassy man apocalypse. And if this is what the young women are putting out into the metaverse, some stranger is putting this out into the metaverse. And women, I mean, you have 569 comments, 9,897 likes. Right? That this is what we think about men, that they're just sassy. Right. All right. Anytime they express themselves, anytime they have any emotion, that man just sassy. Shut up. Get in the corner and just make money.
Get the money.
Come home. Right. Come home. Bring home the bacon and be happy. 100% of the time.
I mean, reiterating what we were saying before. Yeah, that's why the man is like, well, you know, I need to hold these feelings there because somebody's gonna say I'm soft, I'm sassy, I'm weak, I'm this, I'm that. You know, there you go.
And see that comment is very, very disappointing. It's disappointing on so many levels, because again, regardless if I'm a man, a woman, a cat, a dog, a chicken, I have emotions, I have feelings. Yep. Like my dog has feelings. I can tell when I hurt her feelings because she puts her head down and she slowly walks away. Mm-hmm. I know in that moment I hurt her feelings. But also when it comes down to for us as men, those emotions have to go somewhere. Mm-hmm. And so if I'm not adequately and appropriately expressing those emotions and releasing those emotions, eventually they explode out. And so I'd rather my partner, you know, express themselves in an effective, in an appropriate manner, than them express it in an inappropriate manner. Because again, as you see, people are killing each other. Yep. So we're having an argument. Next thing you know, 15 years of repressed emotions flies out. You know, and next thing you know, I done went upside your head, and I didn't mean to hit you that hard, but this 15 years worth of pent up aggression. You know, I done punched you through the wall. Or, you know, I do something that like take my life, or, you know, do something like, you know, just acting out in public. Like there's a wide variety of different things that can happen when you are not appropriate, when you do not have the outlet to appropriately express yourself. Because those, like I said, emotions, they got to go somewhere. And eventually, you know, like Khalil was saying, your body goes where your mind leads it. And so if you do not let those emotions out, you do not express yourself in an effective, in an appropriate manner, it starts to poison you physically.
Right.
I think using even words like healthy manner, right? And when we talk about men, we like to say appropriate or inappropriate way. But with women, we say if it was healthy or unhealthy. Yeah. But I think that's just humans in general. Exactly. It's either healthy or unhealthy. Men, either they express them in a healthy way or they don't express them in a healthy way. I have a friend, and he was talking about this very topic of how women expect men to just hold everything in. But the minute a man expresses himself, then it's, oh, you have to do it that way, or oh, you're angry, or oh, you know, you just taking it too far. And he's like, well, dang, Right, you're doing too much. He said, but if I sit here, I pay all of the bills, I'm taking care of you, I can't come home and express a bad day at work. And I said, no, everybody's entitled. Well, your feelings are fact.
Right.
Just because I feel it don't mean you feel it, but it's still a feeling to me, right? It still hurt my feelings. And I think we have to give people the license to do things in a healthy manner. Maybe not punching someone might not be the option. But if that man is upset, maybe he does need an extra hour at the gym without being harassed.
Right.
Don't call it.
Sorry, did I say? Ooh, did I say that? For all the women, right? Ooh, did I say that? Did I say that? Like, it's okay if you.
We got to do that. Like, honestly, I think like that's the part of actually evolving and becoming more mature is understanding the emotional intelligence of your mate and the people around you. Like, if my husband or significant other came home and was like, you know, I'm frustrated, hey, let's talk. If you don't want to talk,
oh, Jasmine, not you saying women got to grow up.
We do.
Okay.
I'm going to stick it. I'm going to have to just say it. I'm going to have to go ahead and say it. We're going to have to be mature about it, because I think so many women now are using social media platforms to undermine men, and we can't keep doing that. Like, if we want to say we want to be in meaningful relationships and have partnerships that are successful, you cannot be undermining your partner. Like, I just don't feel in any way that's going to create a successful or a cohesive type of environment. And then even like you said, it trickles over to the kids. If my daughter see me over here like daddy mad and you over here mad and everybody mad.
Yeah. Because you are not creating emotional safe spaces. I teach my clients about that. You have to create an emotional safe space. And that emotional safe space can look different for everybody. For somebody, the emotional safe space, it might just be absolute silence. I think Raja talked about it, how he sat on the phone with people, right? For another person, that might be a long drive down the road. Another person, that might be just playing basketball for a few hours. And they're not talking, they're just clearing their head. But when we force people to be in our emotional space because we're uncomfortable, then they don't get to express what they need to express, because now I'm trying to do it in a way to make sure now I'm policing your feelings.
I'm trying to
now I'm taking ownership of how you won't feel about it.
I'm trying to get the
Now, I had the bad day. I had the bad day. I'm asking you to sit in this space with me.
Right.
And when you come into my space, you have to be willing to do what I need to do to help me to feel comfortable, so long as it's healthy. Yeah. Right? I'm not talking about downing a bottle of whiskey, right? I'm not talking about sitting there,
smoking a blunt,
smoking a blunt or trashing your friends. Well, listen, I'm not against medicinal properties of certain things.
Right. I mean, to each his own.
I'm just not going. I had to stop.
Yeah, but look, no.
Little microdose. They say the studies have shown that microdosing can help.
Listen, we cheat.
A little CBD. A little THC, a little, give them
a little
mushrooms. Okay, JK with the mushrooms. JK with the shrooms.
There's a level to that. You know what I'm saying? Like, every day you're drinking and using some sort of substance, that means you're escaping something. Because if you need a mind mood altering chemical every single day, there's a problem.
Yeah. Right. But if you're creating an emotional space where, okay, I might just need you to come over to the house or come pick my kids up.
Right.
Hey, I just need an hour.
Decompress.
And no questions asked. Just come sit with the kids, the dog. I'll be back. I just need to sit in these feelings. I'm gonna tell you this: sitting in the driver's seat of your car with nobody in that bad boy, it's therapeutic.
Yeah. I mean,
healing.
Sometimes, I mean, like for me as a provider, I know like what I like to do is I like to just be quiet. Like, because I need to be quiet, because I'm processing what I'm going through right now. I don't need a whole bunch of distractions. So even when I'm upset, like, I'm upset or I feel some type of way or I'm in deep thought when I'm not talking, because for me, I can talk all day, but in order to not be disrespectful, I stop talking, or to make sure I get a firm grasp on what I need to say, I stop talking, because I'm trying. And a lot of times, like, I wear headphones all the time. One, so I keep my hands free, but two, so I can just put the headphones in. I'm not even listening to anything half the time, but I put the headphones in to be able to cut myself off from the world in that moment so I can have that opportunity to process my thoughts, my feelings, and emotions. Because by not processing them, they're going to get out of control.
Mm-hmm.
And when your thoughts are like an unmanaged fire, you don't have control over the thoughts that you're thinking, because things just pop in your head. You see something, you just randomly think about something, but you have control over what you do with those thoughts, where those thoughts lead you, how you process those thoughts. And I feel like for a lot of us, because we don't know the options that are available for us regarding treatment, that is where our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions start to control us and start to drive us in a direction that is not beneficial to us being the best versions of ourselves. I can't tell you how many times when I worked in the emergency room, people would go through the whole process of being triaged, which you're looking at on a fast day, maybe hour and a half. On a slow day, you're looking at between 4 to 6 to maybe 8 hours just sitting there talking to somebody, just for somebody to get in front of me and, hey, I don't want anything. I'm not looking for inpatient psychiatric care, but I'm just looking to find out where I can go to get outpatient services.
Yes.
And I'm like, so you sat here all day just for me to give you a piece of paper?
Until you can go home.
Yeah.
I just wanted to talk to someone
or find out what my options were, because there's not a lot of places where people can go and say, hey, I want to enroll in talk therapy. But I mean, one of the benefits that the pandemic brought to us, aside from bringing us closer together, because you ain't have no choice but to stay in the house, but two is it brought an explosion of, telehealth therapy, where people can, sign up for therapy services. They fill out a questionnaire and you get paired up with a therapist that meets your criteria, and you guys can schedule appointments and be seen, over hundreds of miles without you ever having to leave your house. But then also you see more people becoming more aware of the fact that I'm not okay, because you were left alone with your thoughts. You were left alone with your feelings, your emotions. And so you started seeing people, I'm not okay. I was talking to one of my friends that's a phlebotomist, and she was telling me about how she worked from home. And she said when she worked from home, that was the worst thing for her. She said because she was so depressed because she never left her house.
Yeah.
I never left my house. And so I was, she's like, I was losing my mind. And so she was like, there was no interaction, because again, outside of, because her kids were staying with her parents. I think it was either her parents or one of her other family members at the time. Because it was just easier, for school and everything. So it was just her. And so working from home and never having to leave the house, it was messing with her mentally. And I explained to her that as human beings, we need human interaction. We need that. Right. Without that human interaction, we need that stimulation, that conversation with other human beings provides us. That without that, your brain starts to compensate for that. You start to see people start to become very paranoid. You start to see people, experiencing auditory visual hallucinations, because their brain's trying to compensate for the fact that it's missing something. That is how imperative just having a conversation with somebody is.
Right.
But with people not knowing what's available, not knowing what's out there in regards to receiving mental health services or mental illness services, like I said, a lot of people don't make the right decisions regarding taking care of themselves. Because if you don't take care of this, the rest of you don't really matter.
The rest of it doesn't matter.
Right. If
but see, that's what.
Go ahead.
I don't think people understand that though. Like, I would say now that's something that we're talking about. This platform of mental health is health. But 2-3 years ago, if you had a mental health issue, it was seen outside of the body.
Right.
Yeah.
It was just like my mental health and then my physical health. The two never collided until the pandemic. And then studies were coming up showing, how people's mental health was affected, how there was an increase in substance abuse, how there was an increase in depression. And it's like, was there truly an increase? Or was it, like you said, people now just had time to sit with their thoughts? Or I'm not busy with work, so now I have time to really process what's going on.
Right.
I'm lonely. Right. These were issues that we've seen in our fields for years. for years. But now it's talked about because one, it caught the eye of mainstream America because we were seeing it at an alarming rate.
Well, people,
a rate that we couldn't keep quiet about anymore.
well, the CDC now says that 1 in 5 people suffer from a mental health issue, and so I'm like, where are you getting your numbers from? Because it's way more than 1 in 5.
That's the reported number.
That's the reported number. But how many people don't report anything? And that's the issue. Is a lot of people just don't report anything.
Yeah. How many
statistics?
I have clients, to this day where they'll try to make it seem like they're okay.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, I'm watching you right now respond to internal stimuli.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You're telling me you're not hearing anything, but I'm watching you track with your eyes.
Right.
I'm watching you laugh inappropriately. Mm-hmm. You're not okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So if this is somebody I'm experiencing every single day and he's minimizing what he's experiencing, just imagine someone who is higher functioning, who's more aware of the way people are looking at me. Because I have one client, she's super functional. Her issue was the fact that everybody views her as a crazy girl, because when she had her first break, her mom went up to the altar in church during altar call, and church, please pray for my child that the Lord delivers her from bipolar disorder.
Whew.
And so now everybody's
clinician.
Her mom is a health provider. I think she's a nurse practitioner.
Okay.
But it's just like you're going around telling people this, but then not even just that, but now people are going to whisper about your child. And so for her, she's aware of that. Right. She's aware of people going to be whispering about me. People are looking at me like I'm the crazy girl. And that's something where, in providing services to her, I have to constantly battle that, where I have to tell her, you have no control of what other people say or do. None whatsoever.
Well,
you could be the best person.
Thinking, because this church could have been her only social outlet. You might know better than, we do, but if that was her only social outlet where she felt close to people, or where she could, go there and feel normal per se, now she can't even use that.
Yeah.
And the young people don't like that. We can't keep doing that to our young people. Making them seem like they really do not want these things attached to them when they're trying to move forward and navigate life. It's like, we can't keep making it seem as, oh, you're crazy. Like a lot of, I think I had a schizophrenic client, and he was working at Chick-fil-A, and he was just so distraught about having to tell his supervisor that he was actually schizophrenic and he could not continue to work. I mean, he was like, my grandma said I'm crazy. Everybody keeps saying I'm crazy. They want to have an exorcist and all these casting out demons. And I'm like, why would we keep doing it? Like, we can't keep doing it. This is not the narrative.
But it is the narrative, and I think that's our job, to destigmatize it.
Mm-hmm.
It is,
right? It's not demons. I'm not saying that demons don't exist, because I'm a believer, and I do believe that demons do exist. But I don't think that mental health is a demon. And I think when we take that stigma away from it, that something's not wrong with you. This is just the way your brain processes things, or this is the way your body responds to certain stimuli or certain atmospheric interferences. This is just how your brain responds to that. Or you've had trauma. Come on, in the Black community, your family has hit you with some trauma, and now this is just the way you process life because of that. Right. It's not you. It's not about you, but people are going to think whatever they want to.
Exactly.
It matters what you think about you and the truth about what's going on.
Exactly. I mean, because like I said earlier, those people who mind, they don't matter. They shouldn't matter. And those people who matter, they're not going to mind, because, and I that's something I have to explain to the young lady all the time. Just because you have a mental illness doesn't mean that you're less than, doesn't mean that you're broken, doesn't mean that you belong in the aisle of misfit toys. Yes, you're mentally ill. That just adds a little bit more seasoning, to who you are as a person. You don't have to allow it to define who you are as a person. No different than, for me, I'm African American. I can't control that. Wouldn't change it for the world. But again, that doesn't make me less than, because I was born differently than someone else. And so we have to, not only, like I said, as providers, be educators, but also be advocates, for our people, and help them understand that just because you're going through something right now, you do not have to allow it to define yourself. Now, some people choose to do that. No matter how much you try to help them understand that or come to that realization, they choose to be that textbook case of bipolar disorder, or that textbook case of major depressive disorder, or schizophrenia, or anxiety. You have some people where they choose to live in that all the time. That's your choice. But then you have others where, again, they recognize and they want to be better. They want to live their best life. And that's where, for us as providers, that is where we come in, as far as, that passenger on their journey, where we're kind of going along with them on that journey and kind of helping them navigate through recovery. Because again, that used to kill me when people sit in the emergency room all day. I'm just trying to figure, I just moved here. I moved here from Michigan, or I moved here from Tennessee, or I moved here from Georgia, or from California, and I'm trying to find out where I can go to get services. Like, a lot of people don't know what they don't know. And I mean, that sounds cliche with me saying it out loud, but, ignorance is the main issue that I see in regards to, just being the best version of yourself. Because when you know that there's services out here, most major city that you reside in has some form of mental health services, rather that be private practice or they have community mental health
facilities.
They have state facilities. There are options to where, as our listeners, if you have a family member that is doing things that is, a danger to themselves or to others, there are options that are available for you in that regard, because there are, the emergency room, and then they, most emergency rooms have some sort of behavioral health consultation process wrapped into it, to where they can come to the emergency room, they can get screened for possible inpatient hospitalization or inpatient psychiatric care, and they can get that help. That with mental health becoming more prevalent and more, I guess, popularized, the services are, exponentially expanding. There's so many options that are available to you, to where if you need help, the help is there if you want it. Now, again, everyone has free choice. I believe in self-determination. But again, you don't have to suffer in silence, because, or alone, because again, they have groups, they have groups that you can go to. There's a wide variety of different services that are available to you if that's what if getting help and getting the services is important to you. That when you come and sit in front of a provider such as us on this call, it's a judgment-free, safe space in which you can talk about anything. You can talk about anything, and our job is not to preach to you. Our job is not to chastise or admonish you or degrade you. Our job is to help guide you to being the best version of yourself. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. When it comes to sitting down and talking to somebody, it's not my job to be your friend. It's not my job to tell you just what you want to hear. Just because you're paying me for my services, it doesn't mean that I'm just going to tell you what you want to hear. So with it, when it comes to receiving any type of service through mental health, I equate it to sitting in front of somebody naked. When you're sitting in front of somebody naked, there's nothing, and there's no place for you to hide anything, because everything is there. It's out. When you come into receiving services like that, where there's nothing for me to hide, I can't hide anything, that is when you'll get the most out of the services, because you'll see that, hey, some of the things that I'm experiencing, you'll start to unravel that for yourself. As a provider, I'm just a part of the journey. It's not anything. It's not anything profound I'm telling you, or something that's life-changing that I'm saying, but at the end of the day, when you come into it open and being willing to receive what the provider's telling you, or you're receptive to healing and to growing, you'll see that, you'll bloom and you'll flourish from it.
I think just reminding them we're like any of your other healthcare providers.
Mhm.
You wouldn't go to your medical doctor complaining of an arm ache, but never talk about it, just talk about your leg. You never get help for that arm if you only focus on the things that weren't ailing you. And we're the same. We can only help or provide insight into the areas that you share with us. We're not magicians. We won't know what's going on all the time just by looking at you. We can, given our experience on this call, we've seen a lot, so we can kind of pinpoint things, but we're not magicians. I tell my clients all the time, I don't have a magic wand. Sorry, it's broke. Okay, it's broken. I left my cape it's gone. It's off. But I think if people know you can come to me and talk about whatever, and I can help you find the resources, because we're not even the end all be all. Individual therapy is not the end all be all. You might have to talk to Jasmine on a crisis unit. I've driven clients to the hospital because they were suicidal, and I say, you need a safe space. And unfortunately, that's bigger than what I can provide you in individual therapy. And just creating a space to teach people what they need. I think another thing is explaining you don't have to have all the answers when you come to therapy. Because I said, what am I going to talk about? Let's start here. Well, what made you come today?
Mm-hmm.
On TV therapists, they do a great job of saying what brought you into therapy, but that is a great baseline question. Why are you here?
Why are you here?
What brought you in? Like,
right.
What's up? Yeah.
And I think, we look at it and it's something I laugh every time I have to ask a new client that I laugh, but it's really just that simple. And sometimes they come in and they say, I really don't know. Well, how long have you not known? And so the longer we work together, we're able to figure out what the deeper issues are and what you need in order to be your best self. But you have to come and talk to somebody.
Right. With that being said, I know we're about to close. I think all of you touched on it, and that's that level of vulnerability, right? Brene Brown always talks about that.
Mm-hmm.
We as a culture have gotten away from being willing to be vulnerable, being willing to, put our feelings out there because we don't want to be hurt. But how much more are you hurting by not? Right? Who's that hurting, me or you? You know what I mean? So I get from that.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely agree. It is very important that we are willing to at least be vulnerable, willing to share our experiences. Because again, like, Unique said, we can't read your minds. Yeah, we work with the mind, but we're not mind readers. So there are some things that I'll be able to pick up on just because, I've read your chart, or I'm looking at you and I can tell that there's something off. But when it comes to actually getting to the root of those things, normally that has to start with you. That has to start with you being open, being honest, and telling me. And some of the things that you see on television, we legitimately do those things. Instead of asking somebody, why are you coming to therapy? I was inquire about, tell me about yourself. Having a casual conversation. Because having a casual conversation comes across less intrusive and less of an interrogation and less of a grilling session, but more so of building that rapport. Because as we're talking, those things will come out. Those tics, those intricacies, those nuances, those things will start to come out. And then, I'm just keeping track of that. And then we'll come back to that. But again, once you feel comfortable enough to talk about those things, because that's my goal, is to develop that comfortability to where you feel comfortable talking to me about that. You feel comfortable being naked in front of me, and share everything that's going on with you, so that it's not an awkward silence. It's not me pulling teeth or me begging you for the information. You actually seek the treatment out every time you're scheduled. I'm here. I'm ready to talk. I got some things I want to get off my chest, and actually being willing to put forth the work, because again, our forms of reality are different. And with our forms of reality being different, I can't want it more for you than you want it for yourself. Your problems are your problems and my problems are my problems. Now, again, as your provider, I care about your problems, but if it's not something that you are recognizing as a problem, If it's not something that you are willing to fix or willing to change, there's only so much I'm able to do.
I can't own that.
Right.
Yeah.
And therapy doesn't always have to be intimidating. I always kind of like want to make my clients feel comfortable and welcomed, as you all said, and, you know, just kind of get a general idea of what they like, their dislikes and things like that, and kind of tailor it around them. Sometimes it may be true therapy. Sometimes it may be just traditional talk therapy. But I mean, I just really like the individual perspectives and being able to put my own spin on it as a clinician. Everybody don't like to sit up there and look at me all day and talk.
But Chasmin, you make people feel like they're at home. You know,
Yeah.
I've seen you in action. You make people, because you're real. You make people feel like, hey, I can be open with this person because she's not judging me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what a lot of clinicians need to be reminded when you're building rapport. Sometimes you have to take that psychotherapy hat off. Sometimes you're gonna have to sit down and just really allow that person to be who they are. You know, when I'm sitting around and I look like I have a stick up my ass, I don't think too many people are going to want to open up with me. I got to say, hey, what's up, man? You know what I mean? What brought you in here? And get real with them. Like, I read your chart. Seems like you've been through a rough time. Can we talk a little bit about that? Like, just be real with people. You know, it doesn't have to be Sigmund Freud all day long. You're going to have to really open up to people and get real, you know.
So we want to thank you guys for stopping by and checking this episode out. If you like what you heard, if you didn't like what you heard, if you want to participate in the conversations, we want you to like and subscribe to the channel, turn your notifications on. We can be found at Try Not to Overthink It on YouTube, as well as both on Spotify and Anchor at the same name. So until the next episode, we are signing out. Later.
Later.